Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the My English Matters podcast. I'm your host for this episode, Aida from My English Matters Customer Support, and I take care of students' queries through Facebook, Instagram DMs, and emails. Today, we're talking about the different ways to use prepositions when talking about the weekend. You might have heard phrases like over the weekend, at the weekend, or during the weekend. So today we'll go through what each one means and when to use them correctly, both in the singular and plural forms. Firstly, at the weekend. So in British English, the most common way to talk about what you're doing during the weekend is with at the weekend. At the weekend means something happens during a specific weekend, usually Saturday or Sunday. For example, you might say, I'm going to a football match at the weekend. This is common when you're referring to one particular weekend. For plural usage, you say at the weekends if you're talking about something that happens regularly on multiple weekends. For example, I visit my family at the weekends. This means you do it every weekend, not just once. Now, let's move on to over the weekend. This is also very common in British English and means something happens at some point during the weekend. It can cover both Saturday and Sunday or any time in between. You can use it like this. I finished my homework over the weekend. This shows that the action took place sometime between Saturday and Sunday. If something happens regularly on multiple weekends, you'd use the plural form, over the weekends. For example, I catch up on sleep over the weekends. This means it's a regular thing you do each weekend. Next is on the weekend. On the weekend is more commonly used in American English, but you'll still hear it in British English, especially in casual conversations. It works the same as at the weekend, meaning something happens on a particular weekend. For example, you can say, I went to a dinner party on the weekend. This means it happened last weekend. For something that happens regularly, you'd say on the weekends. For example, I like to go for long walks on the weekends. It's another way to say you do this every weekend. Now let's talk about during the weekend. This phrase focuses on the whole time span of the weekend, from Saturday through Sunday. You'd use it like this. I stayed home during the weekend to relax. This means you spent your time over the weekend doing something without focusing on one particular day. The plural form is during the weekends, which you'd use when referring to what happens over the multiple weekends. For example, I travel a lot during the weekends. This means it happens regularly. Finally, we have during a weekend. This is used to talk about something that happens during one particular weekend, but without being specific about which weekend. For example, during a weekend in August, I went to the beach. You're describing an event, but you're not saying exactly when it happened. If you're talking about more than one weekend, you can say during weekends. For example, I work extra shifts during weekends. This means it happens over several weekends. Now, let's quickly go over what we've learned. At the weekend is used in British English for one weekend, and at the weekends for something that happens regularly. Over the weekend is used to talk about something that happens over the course of one weekend, and over the weekends for multiple weekends. On the weekend is more common in American English, but also used casually in British English. The plural is on the weekends. During the weekend focuses on the whole weekend, and the plural form is during the weekends. During a weekend refers to something that happened during a specific weekend, and you can also use during weekends for multiple weekends. Now, try practicing with sentences from your own life. What do you usually do at the weekends? What did you do over the weekend? That is it for today's episode of My English Matters podcast. I hope this helped you understand how to use prepositions when talking about the weekend in British and American English. Remember, the key is to practice. So don't be afraid to try using these phrases in your everyday conversations. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to subscribe to our mailing list at myenglishmatters.com to learn English with us. Have a lovely weekend, and I'll see you next time.